Hi, everyone. My name is Christa of Practical Astros, and I'm here for the Asteri Sofia Kairos Astrology Weekly. We do Wednesday to Wednesday forecasts since we love Mercury, and Wednesday is Mercury's day. So we are going to look at the week of Wednesday the 4th through Wednesday the 11th. And there's only three aspects or transits that we're going to talk about. The first is going to be Mercury going into Pisces. Mercury is not at home in Pisces, it's actually fallen and exiled. So it's quite a comical and poetic place for Mercury to travel into. That's happening on Friday the 6th. Then we will talk about Venus squaring Uranus on Sunday the 8th. And then Venus going into Pisces, the place where she exalts, on Tuesday the 10th. The first chart I'm going to share is Mercury's ingress into Pisces. Now, this is for my location. I'm in Asheville, North Carolina. And so for my location, Mercury is up there in the 8th house of Pisces, but really you can look at whatever house Pisces is for your in your chart. Mercury is going to be making an entrance. And Mercury goes through signs pretty quickly, but it also retrogrades often. And we are going to have a retrograde in Pisces later on this month. But for this Mercury's ingress into Pisces, it's the first thing it's going to meet is the North Node, which is traveling backwards against the sky towards Mercury. So Mercury is not at home. It's at home in the opposite sign of Virgo. So whenever a planet is not at home, it has to get a little inventive. It has to figure things out on its own. It doesn't have knowledge of where things are at like you would in your own house. And so Mercury here doesn't operate in a straightforward manner. It can't go from point A to point B. It has to circumambulate around the point to get to the point. And this can be a bit frustrating, but you also get to wander and into areas that maybe you had avoided by going in such a straight line. Part of the name Asteri Sofia Kairos is that Kairos. And I like Mercury in Pisces is opening up to that sense of Kairos. Kairos is opportunity. Kairos is finding these undulating moments where things arrive exactly when they need to. And I like Mercury in Pisces for this sort of experience. It can be frustrating, though. Mercury rules markets and games and competition, like that one-to-one competition. It likes to engage. And sometimes when things are a little convoluted, it's harder to find clarity in that engagement. It's harder to know what the markets are going to do. It's hard to know if you're making sense. That this is kind of the land of poets and free thinkers. Venus exalts here, Jupiter finds their home here. So it's a very benefic place, the land of Pisces. And Mercury gets to kind of wander around. It reminds me of Alice in Wonderland when she falls down the trunk of the tree and goes into the Wonderland. And she meets that door where she has to eat the food to make her bigger, to get the key, and smaller to shrink back down. And the door that she is talking to says, "Nothing's impossible, only impassable." And it's that nature of water, of finding a way around because it can't go straight forward. And so this is kind of the Mercury and Pisces experience. So this is the first one that we're going to engage with. That's happening on Friday, Venus's day, on the 6th. And then 2 days later, Venus herself is going to get into a little entanglement with Uranus. So Venus rules Taurus and Libra. And over here in Taurus is Uranus. Uranus has been in Taurus for 7-8 years. It's going to be moving into Gemini fully this year. It was in Gemini for a hot minute last summer, and then it retrograded back into Taurus. But this last round of Uranus and Taurus, I feel like is doing these final little shakes and liberation dances to break us free of some patterns that maybe are holding us back. Taurus is a fixed or stable-bodied sign, and so consistency, an equilibrium, nice smooth edges, is kind of a Taurus attribute, and Uranus likes to just shake it up. So it can be very disruptive whenever it goes through a sign, but especially a fixed sign. But it being ruled by Venus, Venus is over here in Aquarius. Pluto, Mars, the Sun, Venus, they're all in Aquarius, but Venus is casting this square to Uranus, who is in her temple. And I like this kind of tension aspect of Venus squaring Uranus as breaking free from these patterns, habits, ruts that the fixed signs can find themselves in. Venus in Aquarius is a very liberating, freeing sort of place. Venus has no dignity here except in this first decan of Aquarius, but she's in the moon's decan here. So she is really at liberty to shake things up. And I think that this Venus placement here is giving permission to Uranus to officially shake things up for good, because she's going to square her. And then later on, Uranus is going to be leaving the domicile of Venus. It's going to be leaving Taurus, going into Gemini. And maybe this is one little final shaking things up that needs to happen so that Uranus can be fully free to move on into Gemini for the next 8 years. This could be an aspect that does cause a little friction, but with fixed signs, a lot of times you can kind of see them coming for a while. It is a disruption of the moment that can often be felt like it was good in the long run, but on the front end of it, it can just seem disruptive or irritating or frustrating. There's an author named Asia Suler, and she wrote this really beautiful workshop called Anatomy of a Breakthrough. And one of the things she talks about is that just before you get the insights, you come to the impasse. And when you are at the impasse, that's when you know that an insight is around the corner. And that's what this reminds me of, is Venus squaring Uranus. It feels like this impasse, but if you just really feel into it and honestly answer kind of what are the patterns that are just holding you back because of legacy or habit or just inertia, those things need to be shackled off of you so that you can go forward. And that is Venus squaring Uranus. So then the next thing we're going to look at is, that's my timer, got to wrap up. Then after Venus squares Uranus, she's going to move into an exalted place. It's almost like we get this treat of Venus coming home to this exalted throne of Pisces after she has worked through that difficulty, that challenge, that impasse with Uranus. This is her reward. She is bold when she addresses that square with Uranus, and then she gets to rest and be celebrated when she goes into Pisces. When a planet is exalted, things are brought to it. It's like you're an honored guest. It's like if you've been traveling for a long time and you come home and all your friends come over and they just want to hear all your stories and feed you food and celebrate your adventures and just be around you and support you and just have a joyous time. And Venus here experiences that. She's going to be just a few degrees away from Mercury. So he'll probably have plenty of poems to recite to her at this point. The North Node is awfully close. She will conjoin the North Node on the eclipse in a week. So she's really approaching this grand expansion as soon as she goes into Pisces. This is such a lovely transit, and I hope that it is subjectively felt in a really glorious way, that we help lift each other up, that we support each other, that we listen to each other's stories, that we celebrate each other's adventures. There's a lot of difficulty kind of happening all around us. So when we have these really sweet moments, it's important to recognize them and celebrate them, whatever house Pisces is for you. May you have good blessing with Mercury coming in there, doing some poetic investigation, and then when Venus comes in on the 10th, to have some Venusian blessing. And that is it for the week. I will be back next week for the week of the 11th through the 18th. We're going to talk about Mercury in the North Node together, Saturn going into Aries, the new moon in Aquarius, which is an out of sign eclipse, and then the sun going into Pisces. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next week.